Good afternoon. Today's edition of Who's in the House with Michael. I bring my lovely friend and guest, Steve Schlansky with Brookhill. Nice to see you, sir. Pleasure to have you, Steve. I like to bring a wide variety of guests into the studio, and we talk a lot about a lot of different things. I really want to learn more about you and introduce you to my audience. So I always like to start with, where did it all start?
Yeah, the origin story.
Yeah, I guess so.
There you go.
So where were you born and raised?
Born and raised in Bayside, Queens, which I believe is the center of the universe because you tend to not know. You always know people that go there, know people that live there, or they've lived there. Just Bayside has just become that place to so many people.
There's a famous poster from back in the day. It used to be in my college room. The view of the United States from a New Yorker's
From
point.
the New Yorker map.
Right, everything's here.
It's
hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, so did you go to school and grow up and do high school in Bayside?
Yeah, high school, Benjamin and Cardoza High School. Went to what was then SUNY Binghamton and is now Binghamton University, where my youngest son is.
What did you study at Binghamton?
Started as a theater tech major, believe it or not, for the first year. And that was also how I was making my student money. I was working in the wood shop, believe it or not. But kind of decided that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I ended up a poli-sci economics major. And poli-sci was great, but economics, not so much.
So this is a real change. Mm-hmm. What was going on in high school that made you think you were going to be in theater technology? What was
well, I was on the stage crew.
Yeah.
And which was great, and all my friends. And it wasn't the AV, it was the stage crew. So we put on all the stage productions for the high school. And then right down the street from us was Queensborough Community College, and they had true Actors Equity performances that they put on there with actors you would know. And we one of the play my senior year that we built the set for was Time of Your Life by William Saroyan. So it was a big bar, with taking up the whole stage. So learned a lot. I mean, because we were doing things, on the stage crew version of things, handed down, not necessarily the right way. And then we got involved in the Actors Equity, and it was like, oh, that's the way you actually do this. So learned a lot. So went to, I was going to Binghamton, and Binghamton actually did and probably still does have the highest number of graduates that go to the Yale School of Drama, which is impressive.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
So it's and the theater department has grown over the years there.
If you would have said Ithaca, I would have understood that.
Yeah.
But maybe capitalize on some of that.
Yeah, almost went to Cornell, but when I went there on a trip to check it out, it was like, wow, everybody here is miserable. I don't know if I want to do this. And so, the next day, Binghamton, everybody was
What
happy.
happened when you were Binghamton that made you see things differently for yourself? Were you past your first semester?
It was, it was kind of in the middle of the second semester. I had done very well. As it turns out, at the time, didn't know it, but I had gotten one of very few A+ in the intro theater class, and to be involved in the theater program, and you had to take everything. So you would have to take dance, and you have to take all that. So I was like, I don't know, and I didn't really want to spend my life striking sets till 4 o'clock in the morning.
And recognize other strengths and where your interests were really lying, right?
I guess I'm still mature.
Building confidence a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
When did you meet your wife?
I was living in the city through law school, and I had a friend who had a share in the Hamptons, and one time went to visit, and she was in the Hamptons in July of '87.
All right. So, did you graduate law school?
I graduated Brooklyn, yes.
Did you?
Nope.
No. So then what? You jumped into this business?
I was in the business, and then in essence, because he passed away, I was kind of running the business, and it was great, because a lot of times in your career you tend to either have a sales path or an operations path.
That's right.
This kind of threw me into both, and I computerized it, I modernized the company, and I rebranded and traveled the country bringing on independent sales reps and distributors. So I was doing everything that was very successful.
So you joined the company, and then shortly after he passed?
Yes.
And who maintained the company? Was it children or?
No, they never really got involved. I was there. There was an older gentleman that was somebody that the lawyer, it was the widow and the daughter, and it was in trust to the daughter. It was life plus one kind of situation. And so the lawyer I was basically doing most of everything, but there was an older gentleman who knew that would just come in a couple times a week just to say hi. And he was a big baseball fan, so that's what we talked about.
Often you would think when in a situation like that, somebody wants to just close it down. There's nobody there with a passion anymore. So
Yeah.
somebody was involved that thought this thing's still
Yeah, and,
valuable
and it went for a while. After I left, and it went for a while,
Okay.
they ended up selling it. There had been some groups that had tried to buy it earlier, and the lawyer didn't accept it. Later on, it was sold, but it was for less than the original groups had offered. So the widow and daughter sued him. Karma's a bitch, and
All right, let's talk about some hobbies and interests. Were there any sports or music involved, or was it theater?
always played sports. It was when I was a kid. I was in our high school didn't have a football team. The story was that it was a new high school, and when it was opening, the principal said no to football because somebody had died in New York City.
Wait, what's the TV
playing
show
football.
that took place at the Bayside High School back in the 80s?
No, that was a different Bayside.
It was?
Yeah, that was.
You know what I'm thinking of?
Yeah, with. I don't remember.
Yeah. Oh gosh.
The blonde kid, but but that was a California Bayside.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I thought it was New York Bayside.
Yeah, no.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there was no football team, but
Okay.
I played like Pop Warner football and always played. It's funny. My younger son, who's big into sports, and he's like, I envy what you grew up with because I could literally walk out of my house anytime when I was a kid, and there'd be 20 guys there, and it was just what season is it? Let's just play sports.
Yeah.
So you were playing sports, sandlot sports, your whole life.
Street hockey,
Yeah, everything.
stoop ball,
Yeah.
anything to be out in the street. And we were
Anything.
just talking about that with somebody because today's children, they have other things that stimulate them. We were home, we were growing up, it was like, get out and play,
Yeah,
and come home by
back for
dinner.
Yeah, my mother would scream out the window. I mean,
Right.
we lived in a garden apartment.
Prince Spaghetti Day!
Yeah, pretty much. And so constantly doing that, because you had enough guys when it was baseball season. You had enough guys to play baseball.
Yeah.
Kids today, that's just not the case. So it's you're driving your kids to appointments to play.
And for people who don't know Queens very well, Bayside, Queens is the outer edge of Queens, just touching the suburbs. So
Yeah,
there's a
it's
little
like-
more spread out and a little bit more land than you would see.
Plenty of green, plenty
Yeah,
of parks.
yeah.
We hung out in 2 or 3 different parks there and played sports. Even years later, I would go back and we had softball leagues that we were playing in Bayside.
Did your wife have a career?
She has a career. She's a very successful person in the travel industry. So she's into operations for corporate travel, and that's been a distinct advantage for us.
Yeah.
Great
course,
deal of
yeah,
traveling.
yeah.
We don't do it as much as we could or should because we have our house upstate.
It's
that we
funny
go to.
because, that's come up a few times. We have somebody in travel also, not necessarily corporate travel, but you think that's an industry that's gone away with the internet,
No,
but
no.
especially in the corporate world, it's not.
Well, because I think, and she may agree or disagree, but if it's when you have, in our lovely internet world now, when there's a problem, if you have a problem with Google, who do you call?
There's no one to call.
Amazon, who do you call? So, you could do your travel online, but when there's a problem, and for instance, London, airport shut down. Okay, what are you going to do if you've just booked that travel on your own? It's like, rebook it. Dealing with a travel agent, you've got somebody to call.
Right.
And that's a tremendous advantage.
Especially in the corporate world, people don't have time that are
Yeah.
traveling a lot to do that. You need an organization, a system, a go-to that can take care of everybody.
100%.
Yeah, so good. All right. So the children grew up into sports and stuff, and
My older one, soccer. My younger one was a great athlete. My older one's very competitive and can run like the wind. My younger one is just one of those athletic people. So he was a triple varsity athlete in high school, baseball and basketball and volleyball.
I've got one of those in my family too. It's a natural ability. My
I-
dad had it too. It's an hand-eye, an eye-hand
It's
coordination.
the hands, because I could look at a bunch of kids. I used to, coach them when they were young, and you could look at kids' hands and in 10 seconds know, okay, that's the athlete, that's the athlete. Just the way they carry themselves and handle a ball and all that stuff. My younger one, a friend of him was a volleyball player. He said, yeah, come on, join the team. And he joined the team, and the guy that was the coach also knew him from baseball. He was an assistant coach in baseball. And pretty soon he ended up starting, and then his senior year, he was a middle. And Suffolk County he was number 25 in kills, according to the list from Newsday. And that's not a position that's necessarily, doing a lot of kills in volleyball. So he was a natural, but he didn't want to do any sports in college because they kind of own you.
Are they both into their careers now?
No.
They're still in school?
Yes.
So you're a young guy?
Yeah. Not, no, we did it late.
You did? Okay, because I was feeling very old a minute ago.
Yeah, there you go. As to what they're going to do, they're 22 and 20. Hey, you know what? People don't know what they're doing at 22.
Right,
and hey, I was about to head to law school.
I know. This is true.
Yeah,
we evolve.
Not doing that now.
I myself am looking back thinking that I would have done some things a little differently had I known better.
Years after I went to school, I visited someone. His father was a lawyer, and he said, "I don't care how you do it. Just get through law school and pass the bar, and you can work for the company." So he was, a smart guy. I'm not friends with him anymore, but smart guy. He said, "You know what? I'll go to San Diego." So he went to law school in San Diego, and we went to visit him, a couple of us. And I was like, "Why didn't anybody?" We went to LA. It's like, "Why didn't anybody tell me about UCLA?" It was gorgeous. I mean, just gorgeous. Life would have been different, but just absolutely gorgeous.
I went to school for hotel and restaurant management up in the Adirondacks.
Not Cornell?
Nope. I went to Paul Smith College, which was perfect for me because I really hadn't done well in high school. I wasn't applying myself, and I did when I finally got to college. Got my grades up, and then I transferred into RIT. But I was an outdoor guy, so I got to do all those things. I forget where I was going with that. But anyway, the point is, so now let's get back to the career. You took over that first company, and you ran that company and maintained that, and then you moved on. What was the next thing you did?
I kind of mutually discovered the security industry. I was the old looking at ads in the New York Times. So it's like, having been in a manufacturing company, and you're dealing with the labor issues, and you're dealing with recessions and all that, it's just like, I was looking for something that was going to be a little bit more recession-proof.
Was this first company pretty much operations-based for you?
No, it was
sales side?
But both.
Okay.
It really was both.
Okay.
So I took a couple of steps back in terms of my responsibilities, and I started as a sales manager for ADT in Long Island City. And and it was, security industry tends to have a lot of acquisitions and recruiting and all that. So in the security industry, back started in the '90s and ended up COO at a company, and now I'm COO, CRO. So I like to kid around and say, well, cream rises to the level it's supposed to rise to. So I took some steps back, learned the industry, and and then you kind of rise to the level you're supposed to rise to.
So how did you evolve from there? It's AT&T to where you are now.
ADT.
I'm sorry. What did I say? AT&T.
That's okay.
ADT.
I got recruited by a company that doesn't exist anymore because ADT bought them. And then I went, I did some company jumping. Two of those companies don't exist anymore. One company, I went in as a district general manager, and then went to another company, and they changed names, and then the owner died, and then I went to another company. It was during COVID, and when COVID was winding down, it was going to be a 5 or 6 hours commute every day. Like,
would these be more alarm company type companies or security?
It is, when you're talking about electronic security, it's burglar alarms, it's fire alarms sometimes, CCTV and access control.
Okay.
So you're running the gamut. Nobody's just doing burglar alarms.
Well, now let's talk about what you're doing now, because it's a little bit more expanded than that, right?
Because we started 10 years ago. Our CEO, Rocco Dano, it kind of started, or mostly was automation, smart technology, and people talk about AI and smart technology. It's not necessarily something new, but it's a tremendous buzzword now. But it's about the collection of data and what you do with the data, and it's getting exponentially greater and smarter. So he started there, and it's called low voltage. So you can't touch things that are 110 volts, but the alarm systems and the automation systems and all that, the controls, it's low voltage. So and they kind of work hand in hand. So I was looking, and he found me, and it was a perfect fit. I'm not a technical person,
Okay.
never was. I'm more of policies, procedures, strategies, management, marketing kind of, efficiencies, that stuff. He's more the technical person, and so it's a great fit. And I was hired as the COO/CRO, Chief Revenue Officer. And since I came on board a little over a year ago, and how we met, all the networking, and it's been great. I mean, we had a little discussion about networking before, and the only issue with networking is that so many people don't know how to do it. But if you understand what networking is about, and you get out there and you do your thing, good things happen from it. Relationships form, business situations form, opportunities come your way. Some quickly, most no. Over time, you just have to milk it.
When you're looking for new business now, it can be both new construction as well as existing, right?
Yes. So commercially, just to kind of put things in their perspective, commercial. So if most businesses have some sort of security. It used to be that everyone had an alarm system, even if you were in an office, office building. Not necessarily anymore, but you do have CCTV and you do have access control, and that gives you a lot of flexibility to control where people go and and keeping schedules and all that. But you don't necessarily need a burglar alarm if you're in a secure building. Residentially, in this country, only 25%. In the residence world have burglar alarms, because you'll get, I live in an apartment, we have a dog, we're always home, I'm in a gated community, so people are kind of like, well, we don't need security. My answer to that is, even if you don't want a burglar alarm, life safety means you should have monitored life safety, CO detectors, smoke detectors, water detection in case there's ever a potential for water damage. So that's the argument I always use about that. So you're dealing with that, and in terms of the automation side of the business, if it's a new business, you want it to be, we're safe, smart, cool. You want things to look cool. So there's that. So you either want to, your business is getting a little long in the tooth, so you want to spiff it up, or it's a new business and you're looking to have things look as good as possible. And in terms of, you're in the real estate world, and, existing homes, it used to be, throw a coat of paint on if you're going to sell it and you get the return on investment. This is a funky market, not necessarily the way anymore. So not that you're going to put in a $100,000 automation system, but throw in a couple of cool doodads, and it's the cool factor. And,
For sure.
And it helps the
It's definitely a feature. If I'm walking into a home with a buyer, and I can help the buyer identify things that they're not really looking at. You have recessed lighting here, you have crown molding here, you have dimmer switches, you have good dimmer switches, programmables. Oh, you have smart. Oh, you have switches that are voice activated. Oh, well, those are really value added.
Speakers built into the wall, so who's ever in the kitchen can be listening to one thing, who's in the den can be listening to another thing, in the living room another thing. These smart audio systems and light systems, and you also have the ability, to take. Do you want to have to go to one app for your sound system and another app for your light system and another app for your HVAC? We can all, put it all together in one app, so you're just going to one place and doing it.
You're making the home smart and interactive, but then also, we talk about media, that's at a different level for me as a musician, having a sound system and a TV sound system and stuff. That's all luxury items. That's still part of the smart home experience for people.
It is, but you'd be surprised, people, smart TVs aren't expensive anymore, because Walmart likes to sell them for nothing because they market through those smart TVs.
Right.
So, and like for instance, if you have a Samsung, they've got the Conan O'Brien channel that's always on.
Yeah.
I mean, so they're using those TVs as channels to do what they want.
I have a Google-based TV, and I got the Alexa, and if I ask Alexa for something, I turn on the TV, it's in front of my face. It's a little freaky.
Yeah, they are listening.
They're definitely listening.
They're definitely listening. So it's all part of that, and it kind of makes it fun, and you can pretty much, if someone can think about it, we can do it. So that's a fun thing. So it's like, what do you want?
I've probably told you this before, but I've been around for a few minutes, and I've grown with technology because I come from earlier on in the restaurant business, and in the early days of the restaurant business, the system for accountability for sales and food items was very weak, and over time became point of sale stimulated, and then early on it became wiring, hardwiring the restaurants. So we started building restaurants. So we started learning how to make dedicated ground fault interrupted lines for and then we started getting to running data cables. And just as we all got really good at doing that, technology evolved, and now we don't even use wires for this stuff. You know, so for you, somebody's building a new home, buying a new home, moving into a luxury home. If someone's building a home, is it important to know early on in the plans what they're going to do so they can wire for it properly?
Yeah, I mean, it's been an issue for the security industry forever, where people just kind of go, oh, damn, security. And then, oh yeah, can you put in a 20 camera system in 2 weeks, or 2 days, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I mean, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get with as many interior designers and architects and just design people in general. And it should be as early as possible, because we can help you design those things. We just had somebody that we've been dealing with, an interior designer. And she contacted us. It's like, do you do roll-up TVs? It's like, oh yeah.
What kind of TV?
A roll-up TV.
Oh yeah.
So because in that particular room, the only wall that was okay for a TV was the wall above the fireplace.
Yeah.
So they didn't want to have the TV there all the time. So yeah, I mean, you want to get involved in the process as early as possible, so that you can help the design, you can push the design in certain ways.
Or facilitate it in a less costly way if you plan it early enough, right?
Yeah.
Because conversely, if you're going into a home that's already built and people want elaborate plans, you're going to have to pull wires and do things like that, right?
Yeah, you're going to have to work on it. It's always best if you can get in a situation, especially if somebody's going down to the studs, you want to get in there as early as possible to do it.
So what's the reach? Where's the markets? How big is the company?
It's a privately held company, and we're lean and mean. And where we are now and where we want to be in 5 years are very different. We're looking for exponential growth, both organically and through acquisitions. And we, fingers crossed, we have an acquisition coming down in May. Only fingers crossed, because things happen.
Sure.
We are. I'm in a number of networking groups, one with you, there's ABA and there's IBO and a couple of smaller groups. We're in some chambers of commerce. There's Melville, there's Huntington, because we just moved to Melville, and there's Syosset Woodbury, so basically that area. And then we're in a number of associations. There's the Community Association, which is a nationwide association that helps communities, gated communities, over 55 communities, kind of manage what they do. I gave a presentation last July about amenities. And, because having a gym that's got smart TVs and cool lights, and the common area having a TV room, like a home theater kind of thing, and, sound systems and all that adds value to all the homes in the community.
I would imagine when you're talking about assisted living, senior living, the technology could be used for even more safety things.
100%, and also maybe 10 years ago, Grandma didn't necessarily know how to use a smartphone, but now she's doing FaceTime with her kids and her grandkids, so it's not it's not a foreign concept anymore. So making her life easier, or Grandpa's life easier in doing what they have to do, and turning on the lights and turning on the coffee machine, and making everything that they do easier, more efficient. Lowering the cost, all these things.
What about, there's companies out there that people wear a thing around their neck when they're older if they fall and can't get up. Yeah. Can you incorporate something like that into your?
You can. There are companies that kind of do that distinctly, but yeah, I mean, they're readily available.
I would think so. You're already part of a monitoring system.
Yeah, it can be absolutely be part of it.
So is a company right now focused on Long Island?
The only issue with those is that there's a lot of attrition with those.
Oh.
So
they come and they go.
Yeah, they come and they go. So, and it's tough to. One of my previous companies kind of dove into that, and it was just it was a mess trying to deal with all that.
Really?
Yeah. So.
You wouldn't think it'd be so complicated,
Yeah, well,
it shouldn't be.
People are complicated.
I think it's because they try to, make their physical device proprietary, rather than using something a little bit more genetic and platform and be about the service side of it.
Yeah, I mean, you try, but you're dealing with families, and you're dealing with people, and you're dealing with feelings. So,
right.
So it's tough. And then you're also dealing with collection issues and all kinds of things.
So right now we're Long Island based.
We are Our office is in Melville. We handle Long Island, 5 boroughs. We'll do Jersey, Westchester. So yeah, where the business takes us.
All right, so your potential future clients, commercial properties for security.
100%.
What other things for commercial properties? Smart properties, efficiency for green?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Anything else on the commercial side that I might not be mentioning?
It really is, like for instance, there was a lot of open architecture, like conference rooms in the middle of an open space. So that's great, and it looks great. But what if you're putting something on the whiteboard that you don't want people to see when you're in there having a meeting and there are people who can look in? So what do you do about that? Well, we do electronic shades, so you can do those kind of things. We can gray out the glass. That's another thing that we can do.
I find it fascinating. I learn a lot more. I'm musician based, so I'm learning a lot more about soundproofing. And we've grown as a building community to learn better about how to soundproof. So in your world, to what you were just implying, are you talking about like sound mitigation? You're talking about insulation?
Yeah, you
things
can
like
do
that?
Yeah.
Okay.
You could put
I don't know if
stuff
you're
on-
talking about creating white noise, so people like you and me can't hear.
Either or. It depends on the
Yeah.
circumstances.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah.
And on the residential side, at the very least, a monitored security system with potential for fire, smoke, and carbon monoxide, right, at the very least. And then to that, we can make the home smarter by adding in all kinds of bells and whistles and toys. And we can run them off one app instead of having multiple, right? Because if you want to use Alexa right now, you can get an Alexa type light switch and you put it here and it controls that light only. And then you got to put another one over there to control that light. You can kind of put that all into one system.
Yeah, and there was a time, it's still part of the industry, but do-it-yourself came about, and I think some people in the industry were threatened by that, or potentially threatened by that. It's like, oh, what's that going to do to us? In the end, I think and I think it caused a progression, because somebody will go out, a somewhat savvier person, and buy the do-it-yourself unit. So they bring it home and it sits on the dining room table. And then eventually something else, comes along and then it sits on the dining room floor. And then something else comes along and then it goes in the closet and it never gets installed. So from what I understand, a large percentage of do-it-yourselves are never installed. And then even if you do, something, it's electronic, things go wrong. So it's just,
a resource for servicing.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what it comes down to. And you tend to not necessarily want to be servicing that. And there were also a lot of CCTV systems that were sold by the Targets and Best Buys and all that. And they weren't the most practical, because it was just 6 cameras, but the wires were really short, and it was just like, okay, what are you going to do with that? But using a company like ours, where you're truly talking about what's best for the customer, what keeps them up at night, what are they worried about. I used to train salespeople, and it's like, what's the first thing you should do is, can we walk around your property? And that has nothing to do with electronic security, because it has to do with, okay, so let's just look at those bushes, they're beautiful, but they're concealers. And we'll go around the house and, I see you don't have any lights that are motion triggered. And you see that second floor, people who come to burgle your house, they bring ladders. That's really accessible and it's kind of hidden. So you just kind of point those things out. So you come off not just as somebody going in there to try to sell an electronic system, but someone who's really concerned with the total security of your home. And and the water detection, and the smoke detection, the CO detection.
And not enough people know about this water detection. I learned the hard way, and I have it now.
Most people do.
It's not a big expense to have a sensor to tell you got water on the floor.
Yeah, and you can then you have a relationship with a plumber, and where you could say, okay, so that goes off, so then clicks a valve so that the pipes get shut down. So
Even better.
Yeah, so you can take that.
Make a
step.
note to self, add an automated valve.
Yeah, it's it's something that's it's doable, and we had it happen to us twice. When we first bought the house, all of a sudden I was playing golf, and my wife calls. It's like, oh my God! So it's like, don't go in the basement, because you don't know where the electricity is. And I took a risk and went down there, shut off the water, and we hadn't redone the basement yet. So 6 inches of water didn't really mean that much. But the next time we were coming back from our home upstate, and we just decided to leave it a little early, and not too long before we got there, one of the valves, it was actually not a valve. That one was a, the cold draft of wind came in and split the pipe. And I have the pipe somewhere, but it's like, you've got the pipe and there's just a slit.
Split, yep.
Yep, and so it blew out.
Yeah.
But it caused...
And boy, in a little bit of time, a lot of damage.
Oh, yes.
You and I both know someone who had water damage. Remember where the master water was?
Yeah.
And that's painful. I mean, one of the things I do when
Joe's was on the second floor. Yeah.
When we walk through with people and do the home inspection, it's very important that I want my buyers to follow, because they learn more about the house at that moment than they're ever going to learn.
Yep.
Right? And it's important to learn where shutoffs are, and remember them.
Yep.
So Brookhill is selling a very highly customizable product. It's available to anybody large, small, or in between, commercial, residential real estate. And you can do all the bells and whistles and have all the fun toys, or you can be as minimal as security and safety.
Yep.
All right. What about as your business grows? You're looking to add people. Do you need people? Who are you looking for? Technicians? You're looking for sales, business development? What
we're currently
can we help you with?
Yeah, we're currently looking. We just interviewed a couple of people yesterday for sales, because we're getting to the point where we're lean and mean, and we always want to stay lean and mean. And we have some great subcontractor relationships that we've had for years, and it goes both ways. They work for us, we work for them. But we want to get some salespeople in, so because as we've rebranded and we're taking on a new fractional CMO, and just continuing to tweak the website. We really want to push that, and as this will be a video on our sites and all that, we want to be generating business, but we need somebody to run the leads and to self-generate and do all that stuff. So just continue to spread the Brookhill name and brand. So that's one thing. Over time, with the acquisition, the technicians will come with it, and always looking for good technicians. And we're also looking for someone to come in-house and kind of be the part of the CMO process. So not necessarily having to rely on somebody outside the company, but somebody right there that can go to the website and make the changes and help with marketing the product, all that.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah. So on that CMO thing, I've met a bunch of them through our groups recently. Anybody I would know that you're involved with? Or came from one of our groups?
I don't think so.
Okay,
no.
Good. All right. What else can we do for your business? How can we help you?
Just get out the name. I've had some conversations with people, and it's like, well, what's Brookhill? And my answer to that is, what was Sloman's before it became Sloman's? I mean, just through marketing and advertising, Sloman's became Sloman's. So between marketing and advertising and getting customers, Brookhill, we wanted to become, that household name and known for security, in this area.
Brookhill is safe, smart and cool.
Cool, yeah, because it's funny because we kept talking to people about what we do, and the reaction was, oh, that's cool.
It is cool.
And that word just kept on coming up. So I said, let's throw it in the slogan. We were Brookhill Tech Designs, which was a little chunky, so we cut it down to just Brookhill, and we're having some fun. Getting the word out there. We're in Libby, which is Long Island Builders Institute, and that's been great for us. We're in the Hop Hog Industrial Association, and that's been really great for us. So we're just getting out there, formulating these relationships, and good things are happening.
And I think really, at the very least, within my network, builders, developers, electricians should have relationships, architects with you.
Yeah.
Should have relationships because, again, these things are going into new homes now, even at the minimal level.
Yep.
And people are thinking about it. And it is a lot less money to do it before the walls are closed in.
100%.
Yeah, so, all right, welcome, beautiful. So that was Steve Schlansky with Brookhill, Safe, Smart, and Cool. We're going to post all the information on how you can reach Steve directly and help him build his business, become part of his business, or even become a customer with his business, right?
Works for me.
Thanks so much.
Right.
Don't forget to like us and subscribe. It's Michael's Who's in the House with Michael. We're on Spotify. We're on Instagram. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. Anywhere social media is, Charlie will have us posted.